DC here. Hi guys and gals. Well, hope you're all well. And I am finishing off a Guinness. I had a friend over, he just left. And we had a beer together. This is the same friend that came over last week and that we ended up having a bit of whiskey together. Let me see if I can zoom that in a little bit. Here we are. Okay. Now, I was just going to make that video, and then he came. Doorbell rang, and that's actually not very Swiss. It's quite amusing because he is Swiss, but in that respect, he's not Swiss at all. Because over here, you know, you don't go someplace if you have not called before or have an official appointment. So that's okay. I mean, it's funny though, with time, I mean, we become very Swiss. I was talking about that with Mrs. DC the other day, saying that I don't tend to go to people's places spontaneously as maybe we used to in the old days in Canada, for example. Let's just go for a coffee, you know, and whatever. But yeah, he still does that. He does that, I mean, yeah. So we had a good chat, and it was fun. It was a good break. Mrs. DC's off working. So what I'm going to chat about today was probably going to be one of the SpookyUniversity topics. That is number 85, I believe. And the topic is, see, I'm struggling a little bit. It's where will we be? Well, not where will we be, but like what will the world look like in 100 years from now? And I was thinking about that a little bit, and I was thinking like, well, where were we 100 years ago? 100 years ago was the Russian Revolution. It was, let me see, 1917. So the First World War was not quite finished. Yeah, it was 1418, so not quite over. There was things like that. I mean, that if you look at what's happened in the last 100 years about transport, about communication, and I mean, it's not like the things weren't there, but there's been great progresses in the sense of those things. The main thing, probably the main change in those last 100 years is in communication. Look what we're doing right now. Digital pictures. I don't have it in front of me, but there was somebody who, like in 1917, if I could pull that out, where did I put that? Anyway, it doesn't really matter. But it was in 1917, there people were asking the same question. Where will we be in 100 years from now? I could imagine if you're in the middle of a world war, you're probably going to wonder, are you still going to be alive already? Or are you going to, you and your family be completely wiped out? Now, I think that, you know, I mean, that's very sobering thought, isn't it? Now, when you think about where we're going to be in 100 years as the world goes, well, I think one thing for sure is that if you think about even 50 years ago, how we thought like when technology takes over, we're going to be in this, I was going to say lazy day and age, where we won't have any work, we won't need to work because everything's going to be done for us, and we'll just kind of be retired and sitting on our porch drinking beer. Okay, maybe it did happen. But I think that with the advent of artificial intelligence, which is coming more and more, robotization. We talked about that. I talked about that a little bit the last time was this, with the driverless cars and stuff like that. But we're going in that direction, I guess, as far as technology. Technology is going to take over, and are we going to take the back seat, literally, to technology? One can wonder. The other thing is, in 100 years' time, who will be leading the world? What I mean by that is that 100 years ago, it was still very much the Western world. Nevertheless, in 100 years' time, will it be the Western world, or will it be China, for example? And if that's the case, well, then things will be very different in our way of looking at things. Probably in 100 years' time, there'll be something like 3 languages maybe on the world. We can almost think of it in a way. I could almost imagine English, Spanish, and Mandarin. Sorry, French, there's not enough people. No, what I'm just saying is that finally already English and Chinese are taking over. Spanish is just there because of sheer amount of population. And somebody actually would add on to that, probably Arabic. But I don't know about that because, you know, we'll have to see what happens with the Mideast, you know, how that'll go. But unless things really change, I don't think the Mideast will become like a major power. But, you know, I'm not exactly the person who's going to be the best one maybe to say what's happening. I'm looking at how many minutes, coming up to 6. Now what else will be changed in 100 years? In the same way that in the last 100 years, telecommunication, being able to Skype and everything like that, we have talked a while, are we going to be able to do in time travel? I doubt that we'll be doing anything like that. But there might be high-speed traveling that will be of the type of almost like high-speed trains maybe between the continents, which will use another technology which will be faster than planes can be, and probably in a way safer. I say probably because look how much terrorism can go for tunnels and stuff like that. So one doesn't know. How will the oceans be in 100 years' time? That's a big question. It all depends on I was going to say a bit on pollution, but I think there's another thing is that maybe by then, I mean, if we really take over, you know, there's a problem with water everywhere. Will the desalting or basically desalinification of the oceans become a major issue? I mean, that people will be fighting for water. We've often said that there'll be water wars. That could be one thing as well. Some might wonder, you know, are we still going to be there, period? By then, in 100 years' time, maybe the rapture will have happened. And I'm just, you know, and there's certain things like that you can wonder. Do you remember we chatted about this on a vlog a while back about the Flintstone Jetson paradigm? That the Flintstones knew about all these things because, like, you know how it was in the Flintstones, that so many things looked like modern world because they were remnants of modern world, and that maybe that the Jetsons were actually, you know, the Flintstones were the future and not the past. Now you can wonder about that, you know, like when we say bombing somebody into the Stone Age kind of takes on sense. Sometimes you kind of wonder, well, is that going to happen? What else? Houses, energy, everything will be different. I could almost imagine that everything will be different as far as our jobs. Who's going to be the people that are going to create our, I mean, where are our clothes going to be made? It will all be with 3D printing because nobody by then is going to be in the manufacturing trade anymore. That might happen. I mean, if you think about it, all the manufacturing trade's gone mostly from the Western countries to Asia, and Asia's getting more rich. Will they go to Africa, or in 100 years' time, will Africa be past that stage? Will we be doing everything with 3D printing, which is already starting in a way, but I mean from our clothes up to our food? I don't know. I mean, it's just so many things that could happen. What I do know for sure is that in 100 years' time, people will be saying this is a 10-minute video and it's on YouTube, and they'll be saying, oh, do you remember dagocleo DC? And they'll say, no. Is that a surprise? Nobody knows him now. No, what my joke is actually only a half one. I mean, here we are putting these things, and sometimes we're saying things like, oh, this will be, you know, our legacy to the future. Will YouTube even be there in 100 years' time? Will any of these things exist? Will there be any trace? I think we stop now. DC will be signing off. In 100 years' time, when you watch this, somebody, remember this time capsule. DC signing off. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.